We're reading something different today. 19 Clothing a Blackbird by Augustina. Augustina Basterica. I have to admit to you that I think this might be one of my now favorite authors. I've only read two of her books. But what makes her my favorite author, you might ask? Well, I think that she has this thought provoking. I don't know how to explain it, but I think she has this like. So, number one, I believe her books are always like translated to English from Argentinian or the language that's spoken in Argentina, I believe, but don't quote me on that. And so I even find it funnier that it might be even a lot more um, palatable in the original English that it was written. That's number one. Number two, it's just hilarious. So the first, it's a book of short stories, by the way. The book I had read by her before was 10 Eyes of Flesh. I read that last year, and I have a lot to say about that book. There's a video on that somewhere on this channel. Go check it out. But one of the funniest things, one of the stories on in this book is called Roberto. I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you guys Roberto in a second. But it's called Roberto. And so it starts with this girl who's talking to her best friend, and she says that she has a bunny in between her legs. And her best friend's like, okay, cool. So they go to school, and her best friend's like, oh, my mom said we don't have bunnies, and what we have there is, what we're supposed to have there. And then the teacher hears of what she's talking about, and then it gets a bit creepy because the teacher's like telling her to stay behind after school, and he wants to talk to her, and then I think the teacher, the counselor, either or both actually. And then he then said he wants to see, the bunny between her legs. And she's a child, she's innocent, she doesn't really know what's going on, but really you can probably tell what's really going on. And, well, you think you don't, so you get to the ending. And then she opens up her legs, and he's having like a very presumptuous like face, and he's smiling at everything. And she then says that the bunny between her legs snarls at the teacher. And she closes her leg, and the teacher is like mortified, and the story just ends. That's one of the stories. There's many more that I've read. I'm only going to talk about the ones that I've really enjoyed because there's been like two that I don't necessarily gravitate towards. So one is called Wolf's Bite. It's like a page and a half. I don't get it. And another one is called. It's the one I just finished in the bathroom. Where is it? It's called. So it's called Wolf's Breath. That's one I didn't understand. And then this one is called Tierka versus Nietzsche, something like that. And from what I could understand, it was this guy who woke up to watch a football match, but he got tripped by his ex-wife's cats, and he passed out. And when he woke up, he had 5 minutes left of the of the football match, and that he really wanted to watch. And then, as he was about to see like the winning goal, the scoring penalty, the cat like turns off the television. The cat turns off the television, and he has a heart attack, and he dies. That's what I got from that. I don't know if there's anything else in that, and I also have to stop trying to think there's like an ulterior motive between a story. A story might just be something to entertain you. It might not have some like deep meaning, but that's when I just finished reading. So I'm going for the rest of this book. I'm going to like just come and talk about those that I find really really good. And all in all, I think this is a really good author. So we'll just kick it off with that. Then there are two other ones that I read yesterday that are a bit similar. There's one called Candy Pink, and there's one called Dishwasher. Candy Pink started off, and I was very confused, but then I realized it was like the stages of the loss of well, not loss, but like when you're grieving a breakup and you're like kind of deciding on the things to do. So like number one was the whole this person was like raging around, looking at all things that reminded her of her or them of, you know, whatever was going on. And then there was like the thought process of, should I call him back? What happens if I call him back? And then calling him back and realizing there's somebody else, another lady, at the end of the phone. That whole grieving process. And then just finally deciding that, like, okay, it's not worth it. Might as well just smoke a blunt or jump off the balcony. And then you realize he wants to jump off the balcony, and then there's someone, you know, downstairs looking at you, like wondering what the fuck is wrong with her. It's a whole lot of, you know, emotions. So it was pretty good. And then like, so step 3, attain emotional well-being. Look for the photos in which you appear with him. Stuff like that. Step 4, feel your sanity dissolve in an animal print. Notice the jaguar, zebra, and Dalmatian spots and stripe. Cast a shadow over all reason. Go up in the window and gauge the distance between the asphalt and your body. Step 5, that's like wanting to jump off the balcony and all that. So, oh yeah, she did commit suicide at the end. Oh shit. She shot herself. Okay, wow. But the stages of the breakup. So a lot of these stories in these books, they are not like so full of innocence. A lot of them are very morbid. And knowing that I've read Tender as a Flesh, I'm not surprised. I'm kind of used to, quote unquote, to this writer's style of writing, because her other book was very gory, simplistic, and like it's written in a way where it's like supposed to make you think it's normal. Where of course it's not as normal, but like get on with it kind of thing. It's that kind of feeling where you're thinking, okay, it obviously can't be as simple as it makes it out to be, but that's kind of the way the writing is. It's not trying to make it stand out, it's trying to make it look like it's the normal reality. So yeah, she did commit suicide. And then there's another one. There's another one called Dishwasher, which I really liked. It's this lady called Jane who believes that like her brain is perforated with like smoke and the lighting of New York and the sound that happens in New York. And she has this friend called Carrie, who she describes Carrie as like a machine, right? Basically, because she's always like coming in unannounced and just basically talking shit about people. But when she talks shit about people, she says, oh, can you believe my husband said Mrs. So-and-so is a slut for being a divorcee? That kind of thing. And then she recommends that her friend go see a therapist because number one, she thinks her friend is fucked up. And number 2, her friend is single and the therapist or the doctor is also single, so she thinks it'll be a good match. But then she goes to the doctor and she's not like, so she carries a book with her, I think it's The Great Gatsby or something, and she's talking about how every time she reads a book, she's like always underlining and wanting to talk about it with her, you know, significant other, like I do. When my boyfriend comes, I'm going to talk about it with him. You know, always talking about it, wanting to talk about it with her significant other and that kind of thing. And he's like, okay, he doesn't really give a shit. And so she realizes, she like goes on this tangent where she's imagining that, okay, they're going to have 3 kids. He's going to be a nice guy. He's going to come back from work and that's how they went. And they're going to talk about their kids and what the kids did. And then he kind of says, okay, I'm going to give you this medicine, which was like, what was it called? It was, he gave her Valium, which Carrie says is for the crazies. And he basically said, okay, you need to leave. And then while she's leaving, he kind of touches her ass, kind of thing. So he was a bit more, you know, on the like, he was just like a honey doctor kind of thing. And then she gets him and she tells her friend, and her friend's like, okay. And her friend there says, you know, my husband said crazy people are kind of weird. And she leaves. So she has this like remorseful feeling of like silence because her friend is not going to come back, she thinks, because now that her friend thinks she's crazy. And that's another one that I really did enjoy. And she also just like, after the doctor, she bought a dishwasher because she thought, why not? So I really did enjoy that one. Oh, my husband told me she was a slut, an amoral woman because she's divorced. Everyone knows that Carrie said that. Carrie, we know your husband did say that, so why are you lying? Why are you lying? That kind of thing. I really did enjoy this one as well. And she talks about Betty Boop as well, which was so random. So again, I think out of everyone, the dishwasher might be the most like, I want to say normal kind of one, maybe, sort of, depending. Depending on what you define as normal anyway. So there was that one. So Candy Pink, Dishwasher, then I just read another short story, and this short story was called No Tears, and this one was pretty good. So it was about this guy, which, okay, for the rest of this video you have to just stay with me because all these stories sound like a bit odd. But this guy, basically his job is to go to funerals almost unannounced because no one actually pays for this, and his job is to make people kind of laugh at funerals and not so like not laugh hysterically, as he would say, because then people would want to cry, but like just make people not cry as much and just like give them a little bit of, you know, some giggles and everything. So he meets this woman, or he sees a woman at a funeral, and he's been seeing her like a couple of funerals all the time, and he thinks that she's there to ruin his business, which is also a family business apparently, to make people laugh at funerals, and she's always crying at funerals. So he approaches her one time and says, hey, you know, what's the deal? And she just says like, leave me alone, that she just wants to cry with people, even though she's crying for a different reason, because like she finds it hard to kind of be miserable at certain points in her day. And he just thinks she's there to ruin everything, so he's trying to like stop that from happening. And the way in which I personally think the author uses like her vocabulary and writing to express what this guy is feeling towards this woman is really interesting. And then also it goes from 0 to 100 real quick, because he then just randomly says he wants to kill her, which was so odd. And he references her as like a naked, flightless bird with no wings, and like says that's how she looks when she's wearing a suit, a black suit at the funeral, which was pretty interesting. So I thought that one was cool. And then there was another one called, ooh, this one was good, Elena Marie Sandoz. I'm gonna show you. It's that one. I think this one was really good. So ultimately what this one was about was this lady, or I don't even know if it's a lady, but basically there's this guy who, I don't even know if it's a guy, this character basically experiences someone through like the lenses of a movie, and she's only there for 30 minutes. So this person's only there for in that movie for 30 minutes, 30 seconds, and the movie's only going to be shown twice. But after the first time, people walk out because the movie is so boring. So he decides that he's going to buy the rights to the movie, and he gets it for cheap because, again, that's how useless the movie is. Basically, no one really likes the movie. And so when he buys it, he basically says that because of how beautiful she is, he feels like he owns this person. And so he sees the person across the bar like a while, later, and he says that she looks depressed. She's living in like a shared hostel and basically not doing well for themselves. And he says that this person being alive is actually ruining the image of the person that he had in his mind and he had bought in the movie, even though she was only in the movie for 30 seconds. So he then goes on like this weird quest. He's sending her letters every day, telling her that like she's basically ruining his life, and says she should kill herself. Or he also assumes that she's going to commit suicide, but she's not doing it quick enough. And it keeps happening, and this person then ends up dead. We don't really know if they commit suicide or this person kills, Alina. And then, in a weird twist of events, this person that's been sending letters to Alina isn't sure if they're dead. So this person goes to sit on the bar stool that Alina would always sit on when she goes to the bar. And then this person, I don't know if it's a woman or a man, started getting the letters that Alina was getting in the exact same manner. And I was like, okay, was Alina just the person, and did Alina commit suicide, or is it just like two different? It's weird and twisted, but it was really good. That was really one that I enjoyed reading that in the bathroom at work as well. That was pretty cool. And then which other one do I want to share? Ooh. Hold on. I think this one was nice. Hold on. Because remember, I said I'm only going to talk about the ones that I think I really understood and I enjoyed. So there's one called, this was a personal favorite as well. There's one called Earth. Earth ultimately is about this girl who loses her dad, and she's like lying on the floor. She's been left at her dad's burial ground because her mom left her. And then you go back in time to not in time, but you go back and see that like the dad used to sleep with the daughter, and then the mom makes it sound like the daughter is willingly sleeping with the dad, but she's being abused, obviously. And there are lots of stories like that which is common, where the mom then gets jealous of the daughter because the father or the husband is giving more attention to the child. And so ultimately she kills her dad, and then the dad is like, the daughter's like, oh, I did it for both of us because, dad used to hit you, dad used to do weird things to me. And mom is like, you're weird, you're crazy, you killed my husband, yada, yada, yada. So there's this very obsessive nature where she doesn't acknowledge that her daughter was actually going through something. And she's talking about it with her friend while the daughter's on the dining table, which no one saw. And she says that, like, she's going to have to pay people to take the coffin very, very far away so that she never has to even, like, have the burial ground close to her house at all. And that's where she leaves the daughter, which is where the book starts off. And then the friend basically says, what are you going to do about the girl? And the girl being the daughter, she's like, I'm just going to leave her there. And so she leaves her on the ground, and the daughter says, like, ants are starting to bite her, so she buries herself in the ground, and she's going to become one with the earth and one with her father, which I'm thinking she dies, or like the ants and termites eat her, something weird like that. But that was a really good one, interesting as well. I'm almost done, but that's where we're at. Pretty decent thus far. I will say I've read some of the stories and I've been like, okay, I have no idea what I'm reading, I don't understand this at all, but I don't hate it. So anyway, yeah, that's all. Finished with the book. There are two more stories that I think I will only talk about because, again, or actually three. Number one, number one is the continuous equality of the circumference. The story is about this girl called Ada who believed she was meant to be a circle. She has an obsession with circles, right? And so she spends the whole chapter basically finding a way to become a circle. And she's thinking of, like, cutting her arms, her legs, and everything and becoming a round circle. But then she's trying to have, like, a diet where she eats only circle things because she believes that, like, her body would take the form of what she's eating. So she's eating, like, watermelon and oranges and tangerines, things that basically are, like, circles. Long story fucking short, because I believe this is one I highlighted the most out of all the stories. She wants to be the divine abode in which the sacred is housed. Most beautiful is the circle, which has no angles to disrupt the continuous equality of its circumference. Above all of these, however, is the point, indivisible, center, and beginning and end of itself, the generating point of the circle, the most beautiful of all figures. I wonder if she's thinking about, like, the divine abode in which the sacred is housed. She believes that, like, some certain people look a certain way, because that would be so far from what we're experiencing now in the world anyway, and it's unfortunately is what it is. A circle doesn't have extremities, hence the legs and the arms that need to go. And so she decides that she's going to cut everything off, and she does, and she dies because she loses a whole lot of fucking blood. But even as she's about to die, she thinks that it's all in vain. The grape gets stuck in Ada's throat, and she chokes. The mirror is too far from her to admire the perfection she has become. Such a very weird. I can't put words in an author's mouth. I can't do that, and I won't do that. But it almost sounds to me like a version of, like, surgery to kind of look like what the masses say is the perfection, and then you do it and it's not even worth it anymore. So it's kind of what it seems like to me. And another one is Mary Carminum. This one was weird. Basically, this guy and his friend, who at the end of the day probably deserve what they got, but they have, like, this running game where they rate women that they go out with. And so this one woman had told him that they're going to a rock band. And so when he picks her up, she's wearing, like, a blue dress and she smells very weird, he said. And then, they go into this house, they go underground. It's like an underground, like a speakeasy, basically. And then they realize it's like a cult, basically, and they call themselves, like, the Daughters of Mary. And the rock band in question was, like, just lots of women in blue dresses singing to Mary. And they were singing off key and they were playing guitars. And he noticed that there were only, like, maybe 4 men who all looked the same, where they wore like black trousers and white shirts, and they were drilling and they were unconscious and whatever, and they were just clapping aimlessly. So when he tried to escape, they knocked him out, and he woke up and he was in a black trousers and white shirt, and he was clapping aimless and he was drilling. They had done something to him basically, and his friend came. Because his friend was late all through while he was discovering what this place was really about. So when his friend came, his friend's like, "Are you okay? What's going on?" And then like moments later, the same thing happens to his friend. So bad things happening to maybe bad men. I don't know. That was a really, really good story as well. I enjoyed it, and this is a fun book. And then there's a really, really I really, really want you to read if you can. There's an essay at the ending of the book. I don't even know if the essay has a name. There's an essay at the ending of the book that the author wrote. A brief essay on horror writing by women. Augustina, the author, basically, and it's translated by Sarah Moses. Just by the way. She talks about her introduction to reading and what it was like for women to write back in the heyday, where they would have to like have synonyms, and it would be male synonyms because men were writing more. And she talks about like not even trying to say, oh, this is a female written book. A book is a book, and it's just, what makes it good is if it's a good piece of literature. I know who writes it, but wanting to champion more women in writing, and in horror writing in specific, which I thought was pretty, pretty cool. And a lot of these women were writing from what was happening around them, and were just like highlighting things that were already happening in the society that unfortunately then became like horrific to most people. Amazing book. I think without a doubt, this is one of my favorite authors. I read Planet of Flesh last year. I know she has a new book coming out this year as well, so that will be fun. And there's one more, but I have work, and I'll talk about that later. But yeah. The solitary ones. Now, I will say, like most of the books or the stories that I read in this book, I didn't understand a few of them. This one I didn't really understand as much, but I think is what we're talking about. It's this girl who's going on the subway. She's going for like a New Year's, family get together and everything. And she gets on the subway, and it's kind of thinking of how like you're single on New Year's, your family expects you to be married, but you're not married. So you get on the subway and you think about how a percentage of single women always gets raped or kidnapped at times like these. It gets a bit morbid, and then she gets on the train and realizes she's the only one there. But then someone else joins, and it kind of ruins that fantasy of like, oh fuck, I thought it would be only me. And then the power goes out, and she has to climb out of the train to go find like where tarmac that she could get off. But before she gets off the train, the person who walks in, while she thought she would be the only one there, says, "Oh, they're expecting you." And it was so random and so weird that she thought, okay, maybe it's her parents, even though she doesn't know who this person is from Adam, and her phone was about to die. So she's walking out of the, on the train tracks, hoping that like the power doesn't come back on, or if not, she's going to get crushed or electrocuted. And she's walking, trying to figure stuff out. It's dark. She gets to like a certain terminal, realizes that like it's a terminal that has been closed for like years, but she sees like two random people sitting on the tracks, and she realizes that like it literally ends saying like those are the people she's been waiting for. I don't get it as much, but I'm not sure if there even is much to get, so I don't want to overthink it. Pretty good, pretty good. All in all, well, thank you for watching this video if you watch it to the end. I enjoyed this book, and I will say it has inspired me to it has inspired me for two things. This book has inspired me to write a bit more, because I was a bit of like a writing and reading slip, and also there's the thing of like, and I hope this comes out a lot better than it might sound, but sometimes you don't have to write for everyone's understanding. You can just write, and it's going to translate to people in various ways, which I believe is the beauty of literature. But an amazing book, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye bye.